I sat alone at the far end of the luxurious banquet hall in the Monarch Hotel, watching fellow guests enjoying the corporate gala. Some paused for fresh air on the terrace, others stepped aside to make calls. Waiters circulated with champagne and canapes as the festivities continued, but my attention was fixed on something else entirely. A notification had just pinged on my smartwatch, an anonymous message from an unknown number. Watch out for Richard Mercer. He's targeting your wife. Already convinced 3 married women to leave with him this month. I looked up, scanning the crowd until I spotted my wife Katherine dancing with Mercer, Boston's most celebrated investment banker, known as much for his ruthless corporate takeovers as for his charm. I watched them leave the dance floor, expecting him to escort her back to our table, but instead they headed to his private corner where his associates sat. They engaged in animated conversation while I observed from a distance, a familiar tension building in my chest. I'm Connor Walsh, an international crisis negotiator. Every week I fly to different countries, resolving hostage situations, corporate kidnappings, and diplomatic emergencies for multinational corporations and government agencies. I regularly face egotistical power players who have climbed ranks through manipulation, bribery, and intimidation. Daily, I confront obstinate officials who exploit vulnerabilities and boast about their ruthlessness. When I intervene to defuse potentially catastrophic situations affecting innocent lives, I often encounter resistance, threats, and sometimes even violence. Once, I received death threats from a terrorist organization after negotiating the release of hostages in Bogota. Yet I remained undeterred, and the hostages were freed. I excel at confronting selfish, ambitious, and dangerous individuals. It's essentially my specialty. When Katherine finally returned to our table, she touched my shoulder lightly and said, "Connor, I'm going to the ladies' room." Her voice carried a strange edge, her eyes not quite meeting mine. Then she added, "Love you," in a tone that sounded more like goodbye than affection. I watched her walk through the banquet hall, not toward the restrooms, but toward the service exit. I immediately rose to follow her, but had barely taken a few steps when Mercer's associates, as the message had warned, rose from their table and intercepted me, suddenly fascinated by my work in crisis negotiation. After maneuvering past them, I hurried toward the service corridor, catching up to Katherine as she approached the building's rear exit. "Katherine," I called out. She either didn't hear me or chose to ignore me, continuing toward the exit with determined steps. I quickened my pace, closing the distance between us, and called again. "Katherine, where are you going?" This time she stopped, turning to face me with irritation and surprise written across her features. "Connor, what are you doing here?" Observing her, I noticed her behavior was unusually defensive, clearly annoyed that I had followed her. "I could ask you the same question," I replied evenly. "What are you doing here?" Katherine hesitated, her mind visibly working through possible responses. I could see her weighing whether a lie would serve better than the truth. "Connor," she began but faltered, needing more time to formulate her answer that I looked directly into her eyes. "Where are you going, Katherine?" She avoided my gaze, thinking to herself that this confrontation shouldn't be happening, that I shouldn't be here. "Connor," she started again, but stopped, deliberating on what to tell me. She seemed to realize that fabricating a story would be futile. She had to confess the reality, however uncomfortable. "I'm going with Richard," she finally admitted. "You're going with Richard Mercer?" I asked, my voice deliberately calm. "Where?" "To his penthouse in Beacon Hill," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The truth gradually emerged through our tense conversation. Katherine had encountered Mercer earlier that evening near the bar. He had spotted her, introduced himself, and initiated a brief conversation. Later, when the band started playing, he had approached our table. Everyone was thrilled that the famous financier had made an appearance. He was charming, introduced himself to everyone, took selfies, and then invited Katherine to dance. Katherine was initially stunned and declined, but Mercer persisted politely. Our friends encouraged her, and I offered no objection, so she reluctantly accepted. On the dance floor, Katherine found dancing with Mercer unexpectedly intoxicating. He was sophisticated, attractive, confident, and an excellent dancer. His touch resonated with her in a way she appreciated. He held her in her preferred manner and conversed in a way that captivated her. As the night progressed, after several dances and growing familiarity, her attraction intensified into physical desire. Eventually, he guided them from the dance floor to a secluded corner where he embraced her, kissed her, and shared his feelings. He proposed they go to his penthouse for privacy and relaxation, to discover each other freely. He vividly described how they would spend the night together, promising an unforgettable experience. Katherine was entranced. While sitting with me and our friends, she contemplated Mercer's offer, torn about leaving me at the gala to accompany someone she barely knew to his home. Yet the thought of being with him thrilled her. Although she had found other men attractive in the past, it never went beyond simple appreciation. This night was different. She longed for Mercer's affection and yearned to surrender to the moment, yet struggled with the guilt of betraying my trust. So tonight you'll go to Mercer's, be intimate with him, and tomorrow he'll return you home. Then we'll continue as a happily married couple, as if this encounter never happened? Is that what you're saying? I asked, my voice level but strained. It's not an affair, it's just one night, she responded hopefully. Yes, tomorrow I'll come back, and my dream will have come true. I will be happy, and you will be happy because you supported me in this, and we'll move on. But seeing my reaction, Katherine realized things weren't unfolding as she had hoped. So you're discarding me to be intimate with your charming prince who you see as far superior to me? I stated, the hurt evident in my voice. That really hurts, Katherine. Are you implying I'm not special, not a real man? No. Connor, you are special. You are a real man, she exclaimed in distress. Well, then what did you mean? I'm not a wealthy investment banker who supposedly knows the secret to pleasing a woman? Is that it? Katherine looked down. There's more to it, she mumbled. What's the issue? Are you bored with me? No. Connor, you're the greatest, she insisted. I'm the best, yet you still need someone else. I countered. Yes, she admitted, still avoiding my gaze. I took a deep breath. Why, Katherine? Why do you believe I should be okay with you sleeping with another man, and then returning to me as if it's nothing? It's because you've always approached me with an open heart, and you've consistently respected my emotions, desires, and necessities, she explained desperately. I trust that when you see how meaningful this night with Richard is to me, you'll manage your frustration and approach it as a calm, seasoned, cultured individual. Can I deal with it? Can I actually cope? Please make it clear to me how I'm supposed to come to terms with the fact that tonight you'll be in Richard Mercer's bed. I pressed. How am I to face tomorrow when he drives up with you, and I learn that you two shared the entire night together? How can I look at you knowing you've shared yourself with someone else? Explain to me. How should I process all this? Connor, I don't have an answer for you, she replied. I just hope you can figure this out in your head, and we can continue with our lives. I'm aware you're upset with me, but can't you see how crucial this experience is for me? So you're suggesting you wish I'd simply swallow my pride and tolerate your escapade with Mercer? I remarked. This isn't a fling, she yelled. And no, Connor, I don't expect you to just be okay with it. I'm asking you to acknowledge my emotions and necessities and to reconcile with them because of your love for me, because you're my closest companion, my kindred spirit, and you wish for me to have this unique experience I might never have again. Connor, this is my plea to you. I considered Katherine's appeal momentarily, struggling to understand how she could expect me to accept her intimacy with Mercer. The longer I pondered, the clearer it became that she failed to understand the seriousness of her actions and their effect on me and our bond. She seemed lost in a fantasy inspired by her brief interaction with Mercer that evening. I felt compelled to snap her back to reality. Katherine, what do they call a man whose wife has relations with another man? I asked bluntly. After thinking it over, Katherine struggled with the term. Exactly, Katherine. They refer to him as a cuckold, a man whose wife is involved with another man for pleasure. But I refuse to be made a cuckold by you and Richard Mercer, I declared decisively. Tears formed in Katherine's eyes as she faced me. So you're not going to stop me? She asked. No, Katherine, I won't interfere. You're grown and capable of your own choices. Whether you decide to go through with this or not is in your hands. If you believe this is what you need, then proceed, spend the night with him. I won't block your path. I've already clarified this isn't about love, she contended. I don't love him. I love you, Connor. It's merely a physical attraction. I'm attracted to Richard physically, not emotionally. So you're distinguishing between love and physicality in your thoughts. Yes, Connor. I'm spending time with Richard due to physical attraction, but I'll return to you because of our love. You're my spouse, my closest ally, my soulmate. What we have goes beyond mere physical connection, she reassured me. I won't argue over the difference between love and physical attraction with you. But as I've stated, I won't obstruct your path, I repeated. Katherine stared at me, pondering if I genuinely understood. Katherine, if this is truly your wish, pursue it. I paused. But before you go, we're ending our marriage right now. Katherine panicked. End our marriage? What do you mean? I mean that once you exit, our matrimonial bond ceases. We'll detach our rings and annul our union. The formal procedures will be addressed afterward. Yet in my view, our marriage terminates prior to your departure, I explained. No, I cannot do this, Connor. I simply cannot. Katherine cried. We've already concurred on this, Katherine, so what is your verdict? I pressed. I'm uncertain, she uttered tiredly. Ridiculous. You're fully aware of your desires. You wish to spend the evening with Richard Mercer and then return to me. I stated. Katherine wept bitterly. Are you serious? If I spend just one night with Richard, will you end our marriage? Absolutely. I confirmed with utmost seriousness. Katherine swiftly transitioned from panic to fury as she realized her justification for spending the night with Mercer was crumbling. Connor, do my sentiments and feelings genuinely hold so little value to you that you would instantly terminate our marriage over this without affording us an opportunity to resolve and proceed together? She questioned. Katherine, there's nothing to rectify here. Certain matters in life are immutable, and my spouse being intimate with another man is among them. I won't consent to an arrangement where you're intimate with Mercer and afterward we continue our lives as though it's trivial, I stated firmly. So my feelings, emotions, and necessities are meaningless to you? She remarked sarcastically. Katherine, merely moments ago you were departing, effectively discarding me without any clarification. Had I not pursued and halted you, you'd currently be en route to Richard Mercer's residence for an intimate night. Thus, evidently, my sentiments and emotions are inconsequential to you. Why then should your feelings and emotions hold any significance to me? I questioned. The gravity of her choice struck Katherine. Oh my goodness, Connor, I'm profoundly remorseful. It never crossed my mind, she expressed. Don't claim you didn't contemplate it, because you did, I said forcefully. All I could think about was you getting ready for Mercer and the sensuous activities he had planned for you. You certainly didn't consider my perspective, why you left, your destination, and your actions. Oh God, Connor, please trust me. I had no intention of departing without informing you of my whereabouts, she explained. Upon arriving at Richard's, I intended to message you, explaining my location and actions. Message me? Really? I laughed without humor. So you're saying while you're in bed with Mercer, your intention was to message me? Connor, I regret leaving the gala, but I chose to visit Richard Mercer for some private moments, so I won't be returning home tonight. Good night, and see you tomorrow. Is that it? This is heartless, she remarked. Heartless, Katherine? It's heartless and astonishing that you made a momentary choice to abandon me, your husband, your closest companion, and your soulmate, to spend a night with a man you've recently met, I conveyed with controlled emotion. What's truly heartless is your expectation for me to tolerate it as if it's insignificant. That's heartless. I'm so sorry, Connor. Sorry, I just didn't think, she stated, her voice breaking. Well, Katherine, it's irrelevant now what you pondered or didn't, and what you communicated or failed to, because I intercepted you before you could leave. Now I understand your intentions, and you understand mine. We no longer need to guess. Now we must confront the reality, I said with resolution. Catherine gazed at me with a questioning look. And what's that? She inquired. The essence is this. The exit is there, and Mercer awaits you outside. I presume he's growing impatient. The choice is yours. I decisively informed my wife of 12 years. Without a moment's hesitation, Catherine declared, Connor, I won't walk through that door. I refuse to abandon you for him. I won't forsake our shared life for his benefit. I'm not that naive. I observed her intently. Just 15 minutes ago, you seemed ready to leave through that door and accompany him. So what's different now? Or is everything essentially the same aside from the fact that you're hesitant to pursue a divorce? Well, I mean, is it possible to assume that your urgent craving to be intimate with Mercer has just vanished? Or are you planning to wait until next week when I'm in Europe to be with him? I questioned directly. No. Why would you think that? Catherine exclaimed, raising her voice. Are you planning on being unfaithful to me when I'm not around? I pressed. No. I have never been unfaithful to you. I would never betray you. I adore you, she declared loudly. But earlier tonight, you were on the verge of being unfaithful. If I hadn't intervened, you would be betraying me at this moment, I recounted. The truth struck Catherine forcefully, and she was suddenly confronted with the reality of her actions. Oh my goodness, no. What was going through my mind? She cried out. So what happened? I inquired, studying her closely. I'm not certain, Connor. I'm completely bewildered. I can't grasp how I thought it was okay to go with Richard, believing it wouldn't be wrong or upset you, she admitted, her voice quavering. I listened, yet my doubtful expression didn't escape her. She realized she needed to be utterly transparent with me. Connor, I honestly don't know what got into me. It all started when Richard came up to our table asking me to dance and led me to the dance floor. He was so bold and insistent, constantly expressing his desire for me and how enjoyable it would be to be together in a romantic sense. Then he held me close, kissed me, and started to caress me. And Connor, I didn't resist. I didn't push him away, she confessed with tears running down her cheeks. So you motivated him, I pointed out. Yes, I motivated him. I'm deeply sorry, Connor, she sobbed. Then I persuaded myself that leaving with him was the correct choice and that you would understand and not mind if I went with him. All I can say is that I recognize I've made a huge mistake, and I'm terribly sorry. I reached into my pocket and presented her with the anonymous message. Here, read this, I suggested. Catherine read the message, then gazed at me with confusion. Where did this come from? It came to my watch during dinner, I replied. Is this merely a trick he employs? Catherine wondered aloud. That's what's suggested here, I explained, indicating the message. Catherine was astonished after reading it. I can't fathom it, she remarked. He singled you out from the crowd and enticed you. He deceived you, I explained calmly. Catherine repeatedly reviewed the message on my watch. Was what he did to me all just for amusement? She questioned, her voice hollow. Yes, everything he told you was just for his entertainment, I confirmed. Catherine looked devastated. She realized she was merely the target for Mercer's scheme this week, a prize to fulfill his desire for married women. Last week it might have been a woman named Debbie, next week could be Sandy, but this week it was her. She acknowledged her error in the distressing realization that she had jeopardized our marriage. Connor, I feel nauseous, she uttered, then turned and hurried to the restroom. After composing herself, she emerged to find me waiting by the exit. She approached quickly and embraced me. Oh, Connor, I'm profoundly sorry. Please forgive my foolishness and naivety, she pleaded amidst sobs. I gazed at her and then said, Catherine, Mercer caught you unawares, then charmed you to the degree that you believed engaging in intimacy with him would lead to no repercussions, that I would be indifferent if you engaged in a fleeting encounter with him. But now you've discovered the contrary. You now understand. So promise me we'll never find ourselves in this predicament again. Heading toward the exit, I noticed 2 of Mercer's associates were still present, observing us. Catherine, I need to converse with Mercer's acquaintances, I declared. Please let it be. We don't require any further complications, Catherine urged. No, Catherine, I can't simply walk away from this. And with those words, I approached Mercer's companions. Gentlemen, we seek no trouble, one of his associates stated cautiously. All right then, follow my directive. Inform your friend Mercer that he was defeated today, that he's a failure. Tell him that Connor Walsh will broadcast globally that Richard Mercer is a failure, I commanded. Both men gazed at me, dumbfounded. Sir, we cannot convey this to him, one remarked. Do you prefer to confront me, or him? I inquired coolly. Sir, we wish for no quarrel with you, one replied. Wise decision. Now one of you use your phone and relay my message. Do it now, and mention that upon my departure, it would be prudent for him not to appear anywhere near us, I instructed. One of the men grabbed his phone, dialed Mercer's number, and relayed my message. I didn't catch the dialogue, but sensed that Mercer was seething with rage because his friend advised him against any rash actions before ending the call. What was his response? I queried. He said he would end you. One of the men responded. Okay, I acknowledged calmly. Oh, Connor, I vow to you, after everything, I'll never allow another man near me, Katherine asserted, clinging to my arm as we moved away. I stared at her briefly, then responded, I believe you. And when we socialize as we did tonight, I'll endeavor to assist you in maintaining that vow. I should have intervened before Mercer ensnared you, but I failed. This fault lies with both of us, and also with Mercer, for he ought not to have pursued a married woman. So, Katherine, I forgive you and myself, but not Mercer, and I'll confront him eventually. O'Connor, I'm grateful for your understanding, but please let's disregard Richard. We'll never cross paths with him again, and he's not worth the potential difficulty, she stated. Following her comment, I pondered why she didn't wish for Mercer to endure any repercussions. After all, he nearly cost Katherine her marriage. Why wouldn't she desire him to experience some distress for ensnaring her in his scheme? I'll contemplate it, I assured her. Do you wish to return to the gala? I asked. No. Connor, let's head home, Katherine exclaimed. Yes, let's go home, I agreed. Katherine and I proceeded back through the corridor, re-entered the banquet hall, and with a quick goodbye to our friends, departed the hotel. On the street, I handed the valet ticket and waited with several other couples for our car. During our wait, a black Porsche accelerated toward us, halting abruptly in front of us. The passenger window descended, revealing an irate Richard Mercer inside. Come on, Katherine. You said you wanted to accompany me, so get in the car, Mercer yelled. She will not accompany you, Mercer, I stated firmly. I'm not talking to you, old man, Mercer yelled back at me. Come on, Katherine, let's go now. No, Richard, I can't accompany you this evening, Katherine replied, moving closer to me. Katherine, come here and get in the car. Let's go now, Mercer demanded, his voice rising. She won't accompany you. You were defeated in the game. You're a loser. Now leave this place and let us be, I informed Mercer calmly. Being labeled a loser in the presence of a crowd immediately enraged Mercer. I'll show you who the real loser is, he shouted, exiting his Porsche with alarming speed. I advised the crowd awaiting their vehicles to distance themselves as the situation might escalate. I then watched as Mercer circled the car, and to my shock, he was wielding a semi-automatic pistol. Consumed by fury from losing Katherine and facing public disgrace, Mercer was uncontrollable. I analyzed his actions, recalling similar confrontations I'd negotiated in the past. Like a wounded predator, Mercer had pursued Katherine for hours, intended to take her home for his gratification. But before he could enact his plan, I had intervened and rescued her. Now he was fixated on reclaiming her, indifferent to the measures required to accomplish his goal, even if it meant eliminating me. Katherine will join me, and if you attempt to stop it, I will eliminate you, Mercer declared, his voice cold and mechanical. I retreated slightly, now standing roughly 10 feet from Mercer with my hands raised, palms forward, fingers stretched in a defensive yet non-threatening stance. Lower the firearm, I requested, my negotiator training kicking in. You've disrupted my plans, Mercer snarled. Put down the weapon before this escalates, I suggested in a composed, assertive tone, trying to de-escalate the situation. I'll show you who's in trouble. I'll end you and then pursue your wife, Mercer threatened, aiming the pistol directly at my chest. So absorbed in his rage, Mercer failed to notice my subtle movement of my right hand toward my jacket pocket, where I carried a Glock 43 compact pistol, a necessary precaution in my line of work, given the enemies I've made over the years. I was licensed and well-trained in its defensive use. The confrontation had escalated beyond words. With my hand on my concealed weapon, I prepared to defend myself against Mercer's imminent attack, knowing that his aggressive posture and direct threats justified self-defense. Having decided on my course of action, I tried once more to calm Mercer's outburst. I quieted my own breathing, focused on my action plan, and prepared to draw my weapon if necessary. But before I could act, 3 rapid shots rang out from behind me to my right. I saw Mercer's body jerk as bullets struck him, and he collapsed to the ground. Startled by the unexpected gunfire, I turned to see a hotel security officer still pointing his weapon at Mercer's fallen figure. "I believe you stopped him. You can lower your weapon now," I said to the security officer. "He was going to kill you." The officer replied, lowering his firearm. "Yes, that's what he said," I acknowledged, then asked, "Who are you?" "I'm an off-duty police detective working hotel security tonight," he explained as we both hurried toward Mercer's prone form. "Thank God you were here," I said with genuine relief. "I'm glad I was too," the officer responded. We crouched beside Mercer, who was alive but severely wounded, moaning in agony from multiple gunshot wounds. "What happened?" Mercer groaned. "You were shot." "Stay still," I instructed, checking the severity of his injuries. "Who shot me?" Mercer asked, his voice weakening. "I did, Richard," the officer confessed. Mercer stared at the officer in disbelief. "Michael," he uttered, apparently recognizing him. "Yes, Richard," the officer, Michael, replied grimly. "Oh God, Michael, why? Why did you shoot me?" Mercer questioned, his breathing becoming labored. "Because you were about to murder this gentleman," Michael explained matter-of-factly. Mercer was gasping for breath and bleeding profusely. "I didn't intend to kill him. It was merely a bluff," he claimed, struggling to speak. "Pointing a loaded weapon and threatening someone's life is no bluff, Richard," Michael retorted. "Michael, you know it was just an act," Mercer insisted, his voice growing fainter. "Richard, how many times must I tell you that your acts might result in your demise?" Michael replied, a hint of past warnings in his tone. "I understand, but it was only an act. I was merely bluffing," Mercer repeated, then looked at me pleadingly. "Please, sir, I'm so thirsty. Could you get me some water?" I turned and called to the bystanders to find water for Mercer, but it was clear he was losing blood rapidly. I realized that even if paramedics arrived immediately, nothing could be done to save him. After a few more agonizing moments, Mercer's breathing became shallow, then ceased altogether. I checked for a pulse once, then again, but found none. Richard Mercer was dead. It was past 11:30 p.m. when the authorities permitted Katherine and me to leave the hotel. We, along with other eyewitnesses, were interviewed extensively by police detectives, internal affairs investigators, and even an assistant district attorney. Katherine and I recounted our interactions with Mercer, and I issued a separate endorsement of the detective's action, publicly stating he had saved my life. After a night that began with attending a corporate gala and concluded with our entanglement in the death of a prominent investment banker, Katherine and I were finally heading home. We traveled in silence for a while, neither uttering a single word until Katherine broke the quiet. "Connor," she began hesitantly. "Yes," I replied, keeping my eyes on the road. "Are you sorry that you didn't end him yourself?" she asked, studying my profile in the dim light of passing street lamps. Without hesitating, I admitted, yes. Katherine pondered my immediate and unequivocal response and detected the resentment in my tone. I had been deprived of closure and was frustrated that the confrontation with Mercer had concluded with someone else pulling the trigger. When Mercer confronted us outside the hotel, Katherine was certain this had become personal for me. Mercer was a young hotshot with an enormous ego, a volatile temper, and a weapon. In contrast, I was an experienced crisis negotiator accustomed to outwitting powerful figures, infuriated that this arrogant man dared to attempt to take my wife right in front of me. Katherine was fully aware that I was carrying a weapon and understood I had intentionally provoked Mercer into a scenario where I would likely have to use lethal force in self-defense. Telling Mercer that he had been defeated in their game and labeling him a failure served purely as bait, and inevitably, Mercer took it, which sealed his fate. Thus, Katherine was certain Mercer was doomed before he even exited his car. Observing the clash between the man she might have betrayed me with and her husband, she was deeply troubled because she believed herself to be the cause of Mercer's death. Had he not chosen her, and had she not initially consented to accompany him, he would still be alive. Yet by some twist of fate, an off-duty detective had fatally shot Mercer, believing he was protecting me. This action inadvertently prevented me from having to confront the consequences of shooting Mercer myself, yet it also denied me the resolution I had prepared for. "Well, I'm relieved you didn't kill him," Katherine confessed quietly. "What?" I inquired, briefly glancing at her. "Because it's better that the officer did," she explained. "You mean legally?" I pressed. "Yes, and for our reputation," she added. "If I had done it, both the police and the press would have sought to sensationalize it," I acknowledged. "However, it would have been a straightforward case of self-defense. He acted aggressively, brandished a firearm, and threatened my life multiple times while standing merely 10 feet away. Hence, it would have been a defensible act of self-protection, regardless of anyone's opinions." "Yes, but the press would probe and scrutinize why you chose to kill rather than wound him," she responded, wringing her hands in her lap. "Indeed, it's their role to inquire, speculate, and critique," I agreed. "Yet the reality remains that he was equipped with a lethal weapon, posing a fatal threat. Even if injured, for my safety, self-defense would leave me no alternative but to aim for center mass." "Oh," she uttered, pondering my words. "It will still be distressing in the media, even though I wasn't the one to kill him. Some fault will be assigned to me," I shared, staring straight ahead at the dark road. "And they'll blame me too," she acknowledged, her voice barely audible. "Correct. They will, so brace yourself for the scrutiny we'll face," I warned. "Our attorney will provide assistance to a degree, but only so much. Rest assured, the media will spin the narrative to suggest his death was directly tied to you and me. We might face legal actions and disputes, but don't worry. We are equipped to manage them and will prevail. After all, he lured you, assaulted us, and threatened me, making us the victims." I then reminded her, "But bear in mind, he was a celebrated financier and a local power broker here in Boston. Such figures are revered. So in the eyes of the media, he can do no wrong. Understand that for a while, all we will encounter in the press is the tragic tale of poor Richard Mercer, portrayed as a victim of an overzealous police officer. However, eventually, the true narrative of Richard Mercer will emerge, and the media's frenzy will subside, losing interest in the saga of a banker known for pursuing married women. That's my wish, for all of this to simply vanish," Katherine declared, leaning her head against the window. "In time, it will," I assured her, reaching over to squeeze her hand briefly. We continued our drive in silence for a few moments until I broached a provocative question. "Do you regret missing a night of passionate intimacy with him?" Katherine, taken aback and offended by my inquiry, shot me a glance, incredulous at my audacity. After a brief pause contemplating how to respond, she firmly expressed, "No, Connor, absolutely not." This was the deception I expected to hear. A simple no would have sufficed and seemed genuine. However, the extended silence and the look in her eyes, combined with her overly emphatic denial, confirmed my suspicions. I realized she was reflecting on the loss of her fantasy experience with Mercer and aimed to shield her disappointment from me. However, her gaze, tone, and choice of words betrayed her. Yet I was not surprised, for I understood that the interaction had rekindled and then shattered the notion that she was more than just my wife, that she was a woman with the freedom to seek pleasure with someone other than her husband if the opportunity arose. During their dance, Mercer had engaged Catherine in discussions about desires that often remain unspoken even between spouses. Catherine had listened, and his words had ignited her curiosity. Mercer had persuaded her that the ideal way to explore these taboo desires was with a companion with whom she could be completely uninhibited, a partner devoid of emotional bonds, someone experienced in seduction who could guide her in discovering new aspects of her sensuality. Thus, the groundwork for betrayal had been laid, and I was aware of it. I recognized she was now receptive to intimacy with other men, despite her earlier vow to refrain from such encounters. When I prevented her from departing with Mercer, I noticed the change in her tone and saw it in her behavior. Her actions expressed a willingness to seek closeness with another, though she was not ready to act on these impulses yet. But that was only for now. Aware of all these details, I acknowledged I could never trust her completely again. As we drove home, I pondered whether I could tolerate my distrust of her and accept the likelihood that she might someday seize another chance to be with someone else. Catherine would probably embrace such an opportunity if it presented itself, especially if she believed I would never discover it. The night had transformed everything between us. As we pulled into our driveway, the warm glow of our porch light illuminated the front of our house, but the darkness inside mirrored the shadow that had fallen over our marriage. Our home, once a sanctuary, now felt like a monument to what might have been lost. I punched in the security code and pushed open the door, holding it for Catherine. She stepped past me, her fragrance, a perfume I had bought her for our anniversary, lingering in the air between us. I followed her inside, watching as she set down her purse and slipped off her heels. We moved through our familiar evening routine. Lights on, thermostat adjusted, blinds drawn. Yet everything felt mechanical, as if we were actors in a play about a married couple rather than the real thing. In the kitchen, Catherine poured herself a glass of water, her hands trembling slightly. I leaned against the doorframe, observing her, wondering if the woman before me was the same one I had married 12 years ago, or if she had always harbored these desires that Mercer had so easily awakened. "I'm going to take a shower," she announced, not meeting my eyes. I nodded, watching her walk upstairs. Once alone, I poured myself a scotch and sank into my office chair, staring at the wall of photographs documenting our life together. Catherine and I in Paris, on a beach in Costa Rica, at her sister's wedding. All those moments where I thought we were building something unbreakable. The evening's events replayed in my mind. Had I not received that message, had I not followed her, Catherine would be in Mercer's bed right now. This wasn't a minor indiscretion or a momentary lapse. She had made a deliberate decision to leave me, to betray our vows, only withdrawing when faced with the consequences. Upstairs, I heard the shower running. I wondered what she was thinking as the water washed over her. Was she imagining what might have been with Mercer? Was she regretting her decision to stay? Or was she, as she claimed, horrified by how close she had come to destroying everything we had built? When Catherine finally emerged from the bedroom in her robe, her hair wrapped in a towel, I was still sitting in my office, now in darkness save for a single lamp. She hesitated in the doorway. "Connor," she said softly, "can we talk?" I gestured to the chair opposite mine. She sat, clutching her robe tightly around her as if for protection. "I know sorry isn't enough," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I am sorry, more than I can express." I studied her face, searching for sincerity. "Why did you do it, Catherine? And don't tell me it was just Mercer's charm or some fantasy. There has to be more." Catherine's eyes welled with tears. "I think I've been feeling invisible lately. Not to you specifically, but in life. My research isn't progressing, the department cut my funding, and I'm watching younger colleagues publish and advance while I'm stagnating. Then Mercer appeared, and suddenly I was seen. He made me feel desired, important. So this was about validation? About feeling special?" I asked, trying to understand. "Partly," she admitted. "But it was also about escape. For a few hours tonight, I wasn't Professor Catherine Walsh worried about tenure and research deadlines. I was just a woman being pursued by a handsome man who seemed to want nothing more than to be with me." I took a long sip of my scotch. "And what about me? What about our marriage?" Did that factor into your thinking at all? Not enough, she said, tears now flowing freely. That's the part one can't forgive myself for. It's like I compartmentalized you, our life together, and set it aside. It wasn't until you confronted me, until you said you'd end our marriage, that everything snapped back into focus. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of her confession hanging between us. I don't know if I can trust you again, I finally said, voicing the thought that had been haunting me since the hotel. Katherine nodded, accepting this hard truth. I know, and I don't expect you to, not right away. But I want to rebuild that trust, if you'll let me try. And what happens the next time someone makes you feel special or offers an escape? What happens when I'm away on business and you're lonely? I can't promise I'll never be tempted, she said honestly. But I can promise I'll never act on it. Tonight showed me what I truly have to lose, and no momentary thrill is worth that. Nothing is worth losing you, Connor. I wanted to believe her. Part of me did. But another part, the part trained to analyze risks and identify threats, remained skeptical. We need help, I said finally. Professional help. This isn't something we can just move past with apologies and promises. I agree, Katherine said, reaching tentatively for my hand. Whatever it takes. I allowed her to take my hand, but didn't grip hers in return. The touch felt both familiar and strange, like returning to a place you once knew intimately only to find it subtly altered. I'm exhausted, I said, withdrawing my hand gently. We should get some sleep. Tomorrow will be complicated. Katherine nodded and rose. Will you come to bed? I hesitated. The thought of lying beside her, pretending normalcy, felt impossible. I think I'll stay in the guest room tonight. I need some space. Pain flashed across her face, but she nodded in understanding. Good night, then, she said, pausing at the door. And Connor? I do love you. That never changed, not for a second. After she left, I refilled my glass and turned to stare out the window at the night sky. Love wasn't the issue. I never doubted that Katherine loved me. But love without trust is like a house built on sand. It cannot withstand the storms that inevitably come. As I finally made my way to the guest bedroom, I wondered what our future held. Could we rebuild what had been damaged tonight? Or would this moment, this near betrayal, hang between us forever, an invisible barrier preventing us from ever truly reconnecting? Only time would tell. And as I had learned through years of crisis negotiation, time was both the greatest healer and the most unforgiving judge.